the Small Business Commissioner was set up to address and resolve payment disputes between big and small businesses and to tackle unfavourable payment practice. And if you wanted to encapsulate this in one term, it would be that the Small Business Commissioner helps you free the cash that's already sitting within your business, or perhaps should be sitting within your business, but isn't yet. If Karen could put my first slide up, that would be great, please. I've only got two, so there's no PowerPoint overload this morning. The Small Business Commissioner has three roles. The first is giving information and advice. And by the way, that's a free service, so we don't make any charge for any of the services we provide. But we give advice and information to small businesses who want to help in terms of invoicing, setting up contracts, how to get paid, how to avoid not getting paid. On our website, we have a late payment interest calculator, which they can use to identify and calculate how much interest they're owed for late payments from their customers, so that they can charge that and recoup some of the money they've lost by not being paid. Where we can't help directly, and we're restricted by legislation on what we can and can't do, but where we can't help directly, then we will signpost to existing support and other dispute resolution services that exist and with which we have good relationships. And very often, where an inquiry comes into us which is outside our remit, we will refer it to organisations like Liverpool Growth Company and so on, where they can help and support the business concerned. The second activity we undertake is to resolve disputes between businesses. So it's not unusual for a business to ring us and say, our customer won't pay us. We talk to the customer and the customer says, well, we shouldn't pay because. Where that happens, my team of caseworkers will get involved, will intervene, and will try and get the parties to come to an agreement so that payment can be released. Where it's simply a case that the business isn't paying and should be, my team again will pick up the phone and talk to the large customer and say, come on, it's time you put money into the account of your small supplier. It's an important element. We've raised something like £7.5 million so far since we were set up in 2017, and we've raised almost £690,000 and growing by the day since lockdown started back in March. Where we identify poor payment practice, I have the power to issue a report publicly, setting out what I found, making recommendations on how businesses should improve their payment practice. And that's a useful exercise in getting businesses to look within themselves at what they're getting wrong. And very often it's a case of their processes that are letting them down rather than necessarily a willful determination that they won't pay. Where we issue a report, and I've issued two since I've been in post at the beginning of the year, we will talk to the businesses, work with them, work through an action plan to improve their payment practice, and then I follow up with them after 3 months and 6 months to make sure that the recommendations we put in place have been implemented, and indeed that the supplier is being treated better than they were before. And we try wherever we can to talk to the suppliers involved to make sure that they're more comfortable than they were previously. You could ask, why do we get any success in collecting money that small businesses can't do for themselves? I guess the reality is that a call from the Small Business Commissioner carries a little bit more weight than a call from a small events caterer in Runcorn, for example. So we have I guess the power to have a bit more weight and gravitas, and therefore add to what the small business is doing. And let me say that we also have an awful lot of success indirectly, which isn't included in the numbers I just quoted, because very often, having talked to a small business, they don't want us to intervene, but they use our name in their discussions with their customer and find that that has a powerful effect on what they're trying to achieve, which is getting money out of their customer. The third element, which is slightly less tangible in conceptual terms, is driving change in payment culture. I said that our remit under legislation is restricted. There are some things that I can't do. There are some areas where I can't intervene formally, but I can intervene informally. So throughout COVID, where I've seen large businesses doing good things to support their supply chain, I've been writing out to the chief execs, thanking them on behalf of the small business community for what they're doing. Where I've had intelligence that says that they're not treating their small suppliers as I'd like them to, I've also written to the chief execs and the chief financial officers and asked to have informally a conversation to chat about their position. I've had between 30 and 40 of those conversations over the last few months, and they've been really productive. I can't share the names with you because they are confidential conversations, but there'll be names that you would recognise from the high street and from the financial press. Very often, though, in those conversations, I've found that before I've even had the conversation but have set it up, then things have happened within the business. But my task and my objective in those conversations is get the large business to understand the impact they have on their smallest suppliers, often who are one-man bands, freelancers and consultants and so on. And I try and get them to understand that the impact of late payment for them is a few rows on a spreadsheet and a few pounds in the bank. For the smallest business, it may be the difference between putting food on the table or not putting food on the table. And the impact on a small business of not being paid isn't just financial, it's also their well-being. I've talked to thousands of small businesses on webinars and forums and so on through lockdown, and I've heard some harrowing stories of business owners that have gone through sleep deprivation, eating disorders, relationship breakdowns, mood swings, and a whole load of other issues affecting their mental health and well-being. And it's really important that large business understands the impact that it can have, both positive and negative, when it chooses to do the right thing. And if I may, I'll share one brief anecdote, which I think encapsulates this really well. When lockdown started, Pete Redfern, who is the chief exec of Taylor Wimpey, recognised that his smallest single one-man contractors would have some real problems. So he got his divisional managers and directors to call all those small suppliers to reassure them that there would be no delay to payments going to them. And then he went a step further and he said he would pay those small suppliers early, 3 months' money in advance for work they were yet to do, so that when they were ready to reopen sites, those businesses were still around and would be able to return to site and carry on the building work that was required. And then he went a step further still, and he opened up his intranet employee assistance programs that exist for his own employees to those small contractors so they could seek help in all sorts of areas that would normally only be available to Taylor Wimpey employees. And I share that story, and there are many similar stories I could share, but I share that because for me, we see the impact of late payment of invoices, but invoices being paid late is an articulation of the relationship that exists between buyers and suppliers. And where suppliers are seen as partners to the business, those businesses work together and they work in a spirit of collaboration rather than confrontation. And it's no surprise that those businesses that treat their suppliers well and therefore pay them well also tend to treat their employees well too. So late payment of invoices for me is as much corporate social responsibility as is ensuring we cut down less trees or we use less energy. It's around the way in which relationships are built. And of course, business takes place between people, and that's really important. The second area of changing culture is that the Office of the Small Business Commissioner now hosts and administers the Prompt Payment Code, which was set up in 2008 by Peter Mandelson when he was Business Secretary. And the Prompt Payment Code allows businesses to sign up, businesses of all sizes to sign up and commit to pay their suppliers on time, to make sure that they communicate if there's a problem with an invoice, and to make sure businesses know what they need to do to get paid, and to encourage their supply chain to do the same thing. There are about 2,700 signatories to the Prompt Payment Code. We've had 300 plus, almost 400 businesses sign up since March. And those businesses set themselves out to do the right thing. Over time, we've suspended businesses from the code when they haven't complied with the requirements. And we've just completed a survey looking at and consulting on how the code can be revisited, reformed and reviewed. And that the new reformed code will be launched later this year. And finally, in terms of culture, we work very hard on education. So we work with universities and growth hubs around the country to help educate big businesses on how they should behave and small businesses on what they should be doing to make sure they get paid. And Laura had some great tips on that in her presentation earlier this morning. Getting the basics right is really important, and I could talk about that for a long time if I had the time to do so. We work with business rep organisations, with trade bodies and so on, because we need to raise awareness of what we do with small businesses, and we need to raise awareness of what big businesses need to do to support the supply chain and make it sustainable, and what small businesses need to do to ensure that they get paid. Where businesses are struggling to get paid, if they've chased their customer 2 or 3 times and haven't been paid, then please reach out to my office. Our contact details are there. We're here to help. We have a team of caseworkers who will take on each individual case individually. A single person will look after it. If we can't help, we'll send you somewhere where you can get help. Where we can, we will endeavour to get money for you, and we're a free service, and we are available and willing to help at any time.